Lord, may the words of my mouth and the meditation of all our hearts be acceptable to you. Amen. Does anyone here know Columbo? Columbo? Show me. Hands, Columbo? Good, okay. So you remember that Lieutenant Columbo was a shabbily dressed, seemingly slow-witted police detective whose fumbling, over-polite manner made him an unlikely choice to solve any crime. However, his demeanor was revealed to be a complex put-on, designed to lull suspects into a false sense of security. Columbo was actually a brilliant detective with an eye for minute detail and the ability to piece together seemingly unrelated incidences and information to solve crimes. Now, as I spent time this week on the passage from Luke, unraveling the story, I felt a little like Columbo, continually asking one more question. So I decided that I would invite the lieutenant here this morning to assist me. So I'll just go get him. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Apologize for intruding on your worship this morning. But I just had a couple of questions, and perhaps you'd be able to help me out with these. Ah, right, Jericho. I always like to start where the scene is, Jericho. Nice city, Jericho. Some say that it's kind of like Pompeii. But I don't know. Did you know that it was the place where the king used to spend the winter? Because it was fertile there, and it was nice, and there was a lot of trade, and perhaps that was why it was such a wealthy city. But I digress. A small bit. I digress. Let's bring to the story. It's the story of Zacchaeus. Zacchaeus. Let's go through this. So Zacchaeus wanted to see Jesus. He's walking. Wait, who's this Zacchaeus? What do we know about this man, Zacchaeus? We know he's short. He's rich. And is a chief collector of taxes. That's pretty much all that we know. Anyway, he wanted to see Jesus, so he's walking through. He can't, so he climbs a tree. Jesus is walking by, sees him, calls him down. He says, "Give him my money to the poor." And Jesus says, "You are saved." Got it. Obvious, isn't it? Okay, so... don't really know why I've been invited here if it's that obvious, so excuse me and I'll be on my way. What? Just one question. Why was Zacchaeus saved? Because we think, right? We go to the story, we just turn it, right? So it's Zacchaeus in the tree, Jesus calls him down, he gives his money, and boom, saved. So, give the money, save. There's something bothering me. It's kind of perplexing. Someone got a Bible here, see, because when I read this in Luke, it goes, Jesus calls it and he says, "You are saved because," and here's the perplexing part, because you'd be thinking, because you gave your money to the poor. But it doesn't say that. It says because he too is a son of Abraham. Son of Abraham. You remember the covenant between God and Abraham. I will make you a multitude of nations, the ancestor of a multitude of nations, and I will be your God. It doesn't seem that he's saved because of giving the money at all. It seems that Zacchaeus is saved because of God's grace alone. But I was thinking, this crowd thing just keep on my mind. And it's kind of like there's a crowd there in the story, and what are they about anyway? Who are those people, the crowd? We figure they're followers of Jesus, probably following him to say, find out about the miracles that he's doing, listen to the teachings that are going on, and yeah, that'd be about what they are. It didn't help Zacchaeus much, though, did they? No, they were there kind of an obstacle for Zacchaeus in the way of trying to get to Jesus, and there's that crowd in the way. Kind of like what it was here this morning when there were children who were playing that seeking game. And it's kind of the crowd was there, but they weren't helping, and it was hard for the Zacchaeus to get through. They were a funny crowd too, weren't they? They were grumbling and they were complaining. Well, again, you could figure that they would be grumbling and complaining against Zacchaeus, him being a tax collector and we're told a sinner, so you'd be figuring they'd be grumbling against him, but they weren't. They were grumbling against Jesus. So they're coming to see him, and then they're complaining. You ask, what's all that about? Kind of like an obstacle to Jesus, too, weren't they? What was Jesus doing through all of this? Remember what Jesus was doing? He was on his way to Jerusalem. He's walking through Jerusalem. He's coming through. He notices the guy up in the tree. He says, come here. And when Zacchaeus comes, he says, remember that, right? You are saved because you are a son of Abraham. And that's it. But then he said something else. Do you remember he said something else? Right at the end of that. And he goes, for the Son of Man comes to seek those who are lost. There you go. There you go. I think that's it. What this story is about is Zacchaeus seeking Jesus and Jesus seeking Zacchaeus. They were seeking each other all at the same time. I think that's it. And I'll be off. But just one question. How did he know his name? And do you believe that he knows yours? Yay! Columbo and I have a lot of things in common.